So in today's web dev tip, we're going to catch up where we are with our user stories for our Rick and Roll project. So a few weeks ago, we created some user stories to describe what the project, the application should do. And now what we're going to do is just quickly review those and see if we can sign any off or move any to a different state and what we need to start working on next in terms of producing more code. So I've actually created some more user stories based off of the lesson that we looked at when we set up our Rick and Roll project, and as you can see, we've set a couple of them to be in progress because what we've mainly been working on up until this point, we actually set up an endpoint to create one of these short URLs, and as you can see, the user story is referring to the admin user because we haven't actually put this into practice onto a web interface yet, so most users won't be able to use it. But you can see here that we've wanted to create a short URL and be able to send it to the API via Postman, for example, and we've done that now. You can see in the last few lessons we've been able to create those short URLs in the database, and we'll come on to that in just a second. But what we've mainly been working on is all of the infrastructure, the DevOps side of things, to actually be able to push code to the main branch in our GitHub repository and then actually have that build the API in production. So that's in progress. We've committed that into the branch, and we've also got that live now. So this only really refers to the API at the moment, but we will set up the front-end framework in the next few lessons. But we've seen over the last few weeks that we've set up all of the server configuration and GitHub actions and so forth, that if we push code to the main branch, then it will actually deploy it to our DigitalOcean server. So we can actually mark that one as complete, which in Asana will just make sure that the story is signed off, but we can see that it's complete because it's in this live column. So the other thing we could probably tick off as well is that this user story here for the admin to be able to create short URLs. So I've actually created some acceptance criteria for this as well. We should just be able to see it down here. Given I'm a user that's able to send requests to the API via Postman, for example, that when I send a post request to the short URL endpoint, then I should expect to see a response with a newly generated short URL. And that's been working on the local host system that we've got set up, but it's also working in production now as well. So let's move that one all the way over here to live, and we can probably tick that one off as well. So fairly straightforward, and what you would normally do in a work environment is to actually do this as and when the stories have gone through the different stages. So we might have a testing stage here, another column that represents when the user story is being tested by someone else or even yourself, for example. And it's up to you as a developer to keep track of that story and move it to the various different columns to represent where that story is in its life cycle. And what you'll probably find as well in most organizations, you'll have a daily meeting, usually in the morning, where you will talk about what the current state of your project board is up to. So in agile terms, that would be referred to as Scrum or a daily stand-up. So that's a meeting where you get everyone together, developers, managers possibly, and also any testers or anyone else involved in the project. And you would come to your board such as this and discuss where you are with each of the projects, and maybe if you've got anything that's blocking you and what progress has been made, and then what you're also going to do moving forward in the next few days. So if you've ever heard of anyone refer to a Scrum or a stand-up, that's basically just a session to review a board such as this to see where you're at with your daily tasks. So that's it, our stories have been reviewed and we need to look at what we need to work on next. So in our to-do column, we've got a few things here. We want to set up a web interface so that you can generate the short URLs, and there's also stuff about instructions as well. So this is probably going to be the main one that we want to look at next, which is to set up the front-end framework. So we've got the back-end service working pretty well at the moment, but we want to actually provide users with an ability to log on to a website and also then create those short URLs. So it's a bit vague on the actual user story itself, what we're actually tasked to do, but then obviously the acceptance criteria will give us a bit more detail, but basically they just need to create a web interface for generating URLs. So in the next few tutorials, that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be setting up the web interface within our app, building that into the pipeline, and then getting a form for the user to fill out to actually generate those short URLs. But that's it for this tutorial. Make sure you stay tuned for more web dev tips.